with being able to spend a lot of time. But what I will say, a lot of the stuff that I've learned, I'm having sometimes a little bit of trouble kind of relaying it through the training. But it's the nice thing about once you either start working with a partner or at a customer site, even in the interview questions, they're not going to ask you about like really the nitty gritty. What they want to know is like how you can go about if you have a little bit of familiarity with the system and being able to like leverage the reports or the tasks to navigate your way and figure out an issue, right? Like for instance, when I think of like the questions that have come up in interviews, when it's been, if you're trying to give security to a specific user, how would you go about seeing like, do they have access or not, right? And one of the important reports is view security for secureable items, where you're basically looking at the task and then you could see if the person has access to it or not, right? They're not going to ask you like, how would you kind of really grant access, or if you know the functional areas by heart and stuff like that. It's more just, again, that you're familiar. And once you're familiar, then, you could navigate your way around the Workday tenant and get to the information you need. And then the other thing that's super helpful is the community access, right? I forgot, Shriram, what you said in PeopleSoft that is, but in terms of community, having access to documentation, having access to the videos, and then also the forum where you can ask other customers as well as consultant questions. That's something that I leveraged a lot when I was first kind of starting off. And then also, with things continuing to change, you will probably end up referencing that. Shriram, you were about to say something to see if I could kind of explain that, but agree with you, Shriram. All right, but first I'm going to start off with compensation, if that's okay, and just kind of review, one of the other things that there were a couple of things like while going through the activity, Shriram, I think you brought up some questions and I just want to circle back to them. But a lot of the times also, even though the configuration might be in this HCM, like I might touch upon it, but because there's other modules that it's touching, I may not remember all of them because some of my customers are using them, some of them aren't, and in some places it's like already configured, so I sometimes forget. But I just want to go ahead and touch on them, and then if it's something that really is for another module, I'll let you know. And it's just one of those things. I don't know if you go through this or anybody else on the call, but for me, it kind of bothers me that I can't remember it, and I know it's something so minor, but one, it didn't help. For me, it's a little earlier. I don't know, sure, where you're kind of located. Over here, it's a little bit early for me. So he is great. Hi, Ramesh, and hi, Archana. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to the.
Tiago, you can call me Tiago.
Okay, great. So awesome. So we have enough people to go ahead and really start the class. So yesterday we started touching upon compensation package and kind of really what makes up a compensation package. And what I did was I'm gonna shift between, but I kind of like this visual about how a whole compensation package comes into being, right? Like what makes it up, what are the different elements, sort of, you have the grades, then you have the grade profiles, and again, grades, all that is just the salary range. And then, if you're not a global company and you just have one locale basically that you're focused on, you don't need to set up grade profiles. This is kind of optional, but what I've seen is most of the companies are global or they have specific areas, and based on those specific areas, they have salary ranges. So that's what the grade profiles helps with. And then the plans that kind of I've seen kind of focused on is the salary plan, the hourly plan, and the allowance plan. This other ones, especially the bottom area, is where you get into that advanced compensation course. And I'm just being transparent. I haven't taken that as of yet. I haven't needed to take that. So I'm going to steer clear of that area. And then eligibility rules, this is also optional. This kind of helps with dictating like who is actually eligible for the salary plan or for the grade profile. So providing those conditions that somebody needs to meet in order to be eligible for like a salary plan or allowance plan. Where that helps is something like this, right? Where we're kind of using eligibility to help with the localization, sort of, if you're in the management group and you're residing in India. So it's really looking at the contact information to really understand if somebody's eligible or not. So the first thing is, are you part of like any management group? And of course, you can dictate that, right, in the eligibility rule itself. So yesterday, if you remember, I kind of selected the different type of managers, right? Like I think it was executive managers and just manager in general. So you could select if maybe it's just for the top tier of the managers, or if it's just all managers across the board in your specific company, you could do that. And then the other eligibility was when we selected the currency and the country, right? So you're able to do that. So both of these combined will let you know which grade profile you're kind of eligible for. And then the other piece was around the compensation plans, right? So you have the salary plan, which is kind of just like your normal annual salary, and then the car allowance, which is, depending on if you reside in India or in the US, you will get different ones, and the monthly thing. And there was something that I wanted to get back to you because at the time I knew, we started talking about expense reports and stuff like that, and I knew I was missing something. So you'll see here, I created this one for my company. And when you look at this, for some reason, you can't tell if it's reimbursable or not, right? And so the question that you guys asked was valid, right? If it's, because I brought up the expense reports and stuff, if over here, like we're just saying that this is the allowance plan, why should somebody go ahead and submit an expense report? And the key piece that I was missing and that wasn't showing up when we're viewing this is actually when you create an allowance plan. So when I do, so let's just do one, let's say for mobile, and you see this, when you hover over it, even kind of lets you know, right? Reimbursable allowance plans are associated with expense items. Employees claim their reimbursable allowances by submitting an expense report. So if this is checked, then yes, they need to submit an expense report. You have to tie it to an expense item, and that's the only time that they'll actually end up. So once they submit an expense report, it's approved, then they'll go ahead and be able to submit expenses towards this allowance plan. And the other piece is, and when I click on it, and this is going down financials, but see, there's more items that you have to go ahead and set up. So you'd have to set up, tie it to an expense item, this expense accumulator, I can't remember what that is. I guess the way it accumulates, I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. Is through, either that allowance plan, right? You just have it. Your base pay then really isn't 100,000, right? Your base pay is basically 90. These checkbox, if you don't have this checkbox checked, then you can override it at the time and make it individual, right? Like for the individual, and override anything that's available, either tied to the position or the job at the time you're hiring. And then add in whatever you like. And you'll see that when we go to hire a person, if it all works out. So you're talking about like the codes that are tied to the payroll. So we were talking about this, and then I wanted to talk about the compensation plan. So I went ahead and kind of inputted all the information already. So that way I could just walk through it. Currently, I'm sure there's a lab where you have to go through it. At the end of the day, all, the stuff that we walked through already, that's yesterday, that's really, kind of around grade profile, making sure the eligibility rule is kind of set up appropriately. that's kind of the main thing. Doing this allowance plan, I just wanted to show about that reimbursable piece because I felt like we kind of left that in a confusing place. So I wanted to circle back on that. And then it's really about tying all of this together, right? Grouping this all together so that way everything that's included here is really part of this compensation package.
Yes.
This is available for anybody to
Okay.
select it, and I'll go ahead and show that as well. The only problem is, and I run into this every time when I train, and I always forget about it, because we're in these training tenants and people have so many things set up, and they might not have eligibility rules set up appropriately. The
Mhm.
defaulting that generally happens in a tenant, when you set these up, it should automatically, know that it needs to, if somebody falls into these eligibility criteria, it should
Should be
know that
highlighted.
yes, but because folks, are playing around and we're sharing these tenants and stuff and everybody's doing things differently, that defaulting doesn't show up in training. But when you're at a customer site or you have like, a proper implementation tenant that you have more control over, and it's not all this crazy data, then the defaulting does happen. Okay, so you'll see that, I have the eligibility rule I don't have set up. The eligibility rules are within this, but just what makes up a compensation package. You have the grades, the grade profiles, the compensation plans. And when I click into here, it's actually pretty straightforward. So once you set up the grade and the grade profiles and the plans, then all you have to do is just go in here and just map them in here. So now everything's here. And let's go to my company. So I went ahead, tried to set up the company as best as possible, spent a lot of time in this tenant kind of running through different scenarios, just trying to see where I'm gonna get into a gotcha, but I'm sure I'm still gonna stumble upon something, so I'll have to work through it. But let's just go ahead and look at the org chart and then compare it to the Jamboard. So you'll see I have all these different departments. What I was trying to mimic is what I was hoping to have a while ago in this tenant, is really trying to get it to this point, right? Where we have managers, we have these different departments and stuff, and then hopefully now doing the hiring and putting the trying to show the whole compensation stuff and how it really works. So let me go back to the tenant, and I think I had a position that was open in HR. Okay, so I have this payroll admin position, and I don't know if I already put a compensation thing. I didn't. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that now. And so right now I'm tying this position to that compensation package, right? So that way, when it's time to hire, certain fields get pre-populated. You'll still be able to adjust things where you want to. And one more thing that I have to remember is creating accounts that we'll probably run into. So let's see if we run into it. So what you would do here is request default compensation change. And I think, let me make sure that the business process at the highest level makes sense. Give me 1 second. I'm not firing off a whole bunch of steps again. Because even this request compensation change, it'll fire off a BP, and then I'll probably have a bunch of steps that I need to walk through. So at the highest level, I just want to make sure that the BP that's associated with request compensation change doesn't have too many steps in it that prevents me from actually doing it. So let's do that. And what I did is some of the stuff I'll have sent to Will Banner. I need to make sure, as a manager or HR partner, even though I've dumbed down the BP, there might be another BP that I probably trigger in this process. And I want to make sure that anything either gets routed to Logan McNeil, she'll always be able to because she's a hierarchy owner. And again, she's tied to many different security groups. And you've probably seen that every time I go to the inbox. And if something isn't being routed to the right person, it asks me in her inbox, who should I reassign these tasks to? And we see so many things. And let me see if I could quickly go in there. Okay, it's not showing up, but whenever I come, and I'm probably going to run into that in a little bit, but whenever I can't find a user that, let's say I hadn't put HR partner in one of my BPs, and we'll get into it some more, I guess, next week when we talk about BPs, but the person that it's assigned to or the group that on the BP, the security group that it's assigned to get routed to, if they're not available, let's say, they either got terminated or we don't have this role set up on the org, it gets routed to whoever is like the next kind of in charge or has the most access. And in this case, it's Logan McNeil. And then she could reassign the step to herself or to somebody else, let's say. And then also, I guess her second thing would be to find out why this isn't getting routed to the right person. And usually, like, especially during testing, it's because this person doesn't have a Workday account, right? Because we've removed all the steps in that BP for hiring and we're not taking off the onboarding BP. And what's happening is he doesn't like, he's a person, but he's not really yet a user in the system. So it can't route to that person's inbox. So let's go ahead and let me go to Will Banner. Oh, that's fine. Over here, right, like I have this, but there's nobody assigned to it yet. So all I have to do is you're going to have to search for the role though, right? It needs to know who's going to have it. And then over here is where you're going to search for the person, right? You could search by position, maybe job profile and find the right person. Or let me see in this prompt if it works, is if I search by employee ID. No, okay. So employee ID doesn't work. So the only way would be to do it by this person, by these using this, and trying to find, I'm not sure why it's not working. Trying to find the right person, or if you know who the right person is, right? Like I'll just put Logan McNeil. And this is how she now is tied to the HR partner, this FBI HR partner role. And that's the same thing that I did over here, right? Like with Will Banner, he's the manager, so I made sure he has the manager role, but I also want him to have the HR partner role. And I did it at the highest level. And we'll go through that when after I get through the compensation piece, I'll go back to the security piece and talk through that some more. Okay, and then we spoke about this, I think, yesterday, right? Like you could require a new password at next sign-in, and then the other thing that I don't think I mentioned, instead of me manually, of course, creating it, and I think Shriram, we kind of touched on it, right? Like if you wanted something to be, you have like through Okta, or you want to use your LDAP password or something like that, you could create an integration where it's kind of creating this, using a web service, creating this Workday account. Let's say, you want the employee, it could be either will.banner, what do I have here? Or w.banner, and then whatever the company's email address is, right? The domain, you could have that, and then it just automatically use the, generate the password that you have from the LDAP one and put that in here, right? And then it notifies the employee that this is the information. So it doesn't have to be manually done this way through Workday, but you can. Okay. And then even this, the password rules, the company can configure like what they're, just like how normally, like do they want this, like all this stuff, the extra characters or not? All right, so now he has password, and then there's one thing, hopefully if this is set up correctly, I should be able to do it. Let's see it. I don't see it, but it might be because something's turned off. But usually you could just even, since I'm logged in as Logan McNeil, I should be able to just proxy in as this user, and it's usually through the related actions, and it shows up under frequently used, but something must be turned off. But now he should have access if anything now gets routed to him, like around the hire, let's say, right? Because we're going to hire in a position that he's managing. So hopefully any manager related steps on the BP that are assigned to a manager should get routed to him. But I want to see, make sure that everything went through correctly. Struct proxy. So this is, I think I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again. I think like any person that I've talked to that goes for an interview, or the interviews that I've sat on, as long as you know what this report is really, really key. This helps you determine like what tasks, like the security around the specific tasks, and lets you, what it means by securable item is that task or report. And if somebody's trying to figure out like, how come I don't have access to a certain thing? This is why. Let's go ahead and look at this. I know what's going on. I wonder if they have this turned off. And I think it could just be this tenant. So the thing that I was doing is kind of looking at the proxy policies and seeing if I could kind of override why I can't see start proxy. This is kind of the same thing I think was happening in the other tenant. So even though the last tenant that I was in and I couldn't do start proxy, that was just because I was like a low level kind of user. So I wasn't able to do that. But over here, like Logan McNeil does have access to everything. So I'm not sure why I can't. I'm guessing it's the type of tenant I'm in, this preview tenant, and the fact that in here, no, and I can't figure out why not. It seems like everything's set up correctly. I have a feeling that it's disabled because I got through this tenant through community. This is one that's shared by every customer, company, perspective kind of person. So I think that's the issue here. Give me 1 minute. For security, especially, it makes it a little bit difficult because what I want to show you is like how different users have access to different things. So give me a few minutes to just kind of figure out how I want to approach kind of like the next 2 hours. All right, I was playing around to see if I could further figure out the start proxy thing, but I don't think so. I tried a number of things. So what I'm going to do is just kind of conceptually talk through things. Can you guys still see the tenant?
Yes.
Should I unmute myself? Okay, great. So what I will do is, we talked about compensation package. I was creating will banners thing. Let me actually, sorry, one more thing. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I want to see if I could do one thing. Okay, I'll have to look into this later. I know I've eaten up a little bit of time. So do is just talk conceptually, and then where I run into issues, we'll just leave it. I'm sure I could figure it out, just need a little bit more time. So going back to Will Banner, I was trying to go ahead, request compensation change. Let's go ahead and do that. So basically what this is going to do is tie this position to the compensation package that we had. So let's go ahead and do this. Am I sharing my screen? You're either tying a position to the compensation package, or if at the time of hiring, you'll see all this information except for like the details that aren't filled out. So let me go ahead, edit these guidelines and put the package to this position. And there's definitely, of course, you could go ahead and select any grade that's available outside, but I'm specifically going to look for the grades that are in here. And this is a non-manager position, so that's the grade I'm selecting. Everything else, it's up to you if you want to continue selecting this further. I know that this is going to be a US based maybe position, so I could select this if I'd like, or I could leave it blank and just wait until the time that I'm hiring. So you'll see that it pulled the base pay range over here. I can continue adding this other stuff. Like I could add the allowance plan also over here that I had for the car, and I could specify, right, like how much I want it to be right now, or I could just specify it later. So I'm going to do that at the time of hire if I could get that person hired. So I'm going to click submit, and let's see. This is the thing that I was worried about. Oh, I know why I went there. So this is the part where I was saying, like, any tasks that are out there that through the BP should have been routed to a specific person, but there's an issue. It could be that either there's nobody available to take the action, or the person doesn't have an account yet. It gets routed to these folks with the highest access to kind of let them know, like, hey, there's an issue. So I have several things that I could do here, right? I could cancel this, I could correct it, I could delegate this task to somebody else, but what I'm going to do is just reassign the whole step. No,
Okay.
you just have to have access to the BP. And here it is. So I need to review this default compensation change and just make sure that I'm happy with what was sent. So I hit approve, and I'm guessing there's another, oh, success, great. So that was it. So really this was being routed. It's still in progress, but I can't. This is what I was worried about. I can't log in as Will Banner, but let me see if I could reassign this task to myself. So I'm going to cancel this whole business process. And what I am going to do, go back. And what I wanted to show you really was like how you can log in as different users, like because he's the manager and stuff. But what I'm going to do is now just make Logan McNeil kind of like the default to everything that's in ZaranTech. So I could at least show you the steps. So 1 minute while I do that, because I can't proxy in as Will. Let me make sure resources. So I had him as HR partner and manager, and I will just change those roles to Logan McNeil because that's the only person I have access to right now to be logged in as. So take this person off. And also manager. And let's try it again. So request compensation. Today's date. And again, bring the compensation package and then the grade. compensation partner. So there's a step in this review default compensation that's going to compensation partner, and I probably should have just either removed the step, but or to log in as Joy Banks. But since I can't do that, I'm gonna reassign this to myself. I can't log in as him, so I can't fix that issue. All right, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. Let me go back. So once this compensation package is tied to this position, when I go to hire the employee at that time, it'll trigger that, this is the compensation package. And the same way that I was seeing the information in the inbox to review, it's going to be the same kind of view over there. And you'll be able to, let's see if I could just, instead of that, okay, let me just complete my thought here. So, like how we were talking about, you could either do it through the job profile and attach the compensation package there. You could do it to the position, but then you can also do it at the time of hire. So I'm just going to cancel this whole thing again. One last time. And click submit. That's fine. Now let's go ahead and actually hire the individual. But I want to check why. I want to show you guys something. So Tammy is actually somebody that I just hired today, and I was able to attach. It's probably something that I did around assignment of roles. So I'm going to try one more thing because this just happened today. And see, it appropriately added the compensation package. Here are all the details. I had put that the total base pay, I wanted it to be that. So I'm going to try one more thing outside of that org. I messed up probably the security with the roles. So let's try this. Do I have a position here? Okay, let's do. Okay, so this one already has the compensation package that I tied. That worked appropriately, probably because I probably messed with some of the security stuff while I was trying to fix that proxy stuff, or probably in terms of the effective dating. So I'm not going to touch anything here, so that way it works appropriately. But you see here, right? Like it's already tied to this compensation package. It's proposed, so hopefully it's not waiting on anything. Let's see. Oh yeah, it's successfully completed, so we're good there. So I'm not going to touch it again. But let's go back to this. And now let's actually hire a person. Hire employee. And I'm going to create a new pre-hire. And give me 1 minute to look at Tina Sutherland. I need to put her contact. Mm, time, full-time, locations. Okay, there was one thing I wanted to show you, Shriram. Let's see if it showed up here. Uh, no, I think it's off the position. So I'll show it in a little bit. Employee type, full-time, other, wait. Okay, so this proposed compensation for hire, because I guess over here I had added the proposed compensation step. So now if I go here, she needs to propose a compensation and make sure that, you know, according to the guidelines, we're okay. So she's going to go ahead and add a salary here. So I am going to salary plan for Sarah. So even though, right, like there's the profile, right, like the range that's coming up, the grade 45 to 95 over here, I'll be able to select, I could even put something probably outside of it. So I'm just going to put 75,000 over here. And, I could add additional stuff if I wanted to. I'm going to leave that as is. But at this point, when I select this and say, yep, this is what I want to go with, see how the base pay got updated. And then if I want to add more stuff, right, like the allowance, let's say it's a car allowance. I'm sure that there's a way. I can't remember it right now. So I will,
All right,
will
that's
get
fine.
back to you. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So let me select OK here. And then I put in the allowance plan, which is great. And then everything else looks good to me. So I'm going to submit. That's fine. And great. The event was submitted. Now, if I go to the members, Tina Sutherland is there. And I go to Tina and I can see her compensation. And that's just the total rewards thing. But if I go to compensation here, right, I can see her total compensation is, even though her base pay is 75,000 to 75,500. And here are the plan assignments that kind of make up that compensation. So that would come in, I believe, around the pay. Shriram, you give me a lot of homework. That's how I feel. But it's good. It's good for me to kind of look into these things. When we're trying to see like the worker history and what's being changed, what was changed for them, this other place, I know we talked about audit and looking at BPs. This, in that previous tenant, this one wasn't enabled, but this is enabled in this tenant. But I just wanted to be able to show you that this is another place to go to and see like what's being in progress, what's changing for a specific employee. All of this is just like the worker history that's tied to Logan. And she has a lot of activity because she's been doing a lot of things in this tenant. But this is another place to go back to. There was one more thing that Shriram, based on something else that you were asking me, I wanted to touch on. So, and I know if you're going to ask me to go into the weeds, I'm not going to be able to because it touches on the recruiting module, but I wanted to circle back to this because I felt like it was kind of important based on how many times we were seeing it when we were creating a position. So, and I think we've kind of beaten this one appropriately, but one more thing that I was thinking about, you know how Sriram, you kept on, you were asking about like availability date and earliest hire date, and I was just kind of giving you a functional reason, but the technical reason also is that when the availability date also drives when this position is available in the tenant in prompts, like when you're selecting different reports or you're doing different kind of changes. This just one other thing to kind of keep in mind is that this position then is available in prompts on this specific date. So if I try to do anything before October, like, let's say try to run a report, this position won't appear, or I'm trying to do something, anything to this position. This stuff, critical job and difficulty to fill. So let me just select something here. I will just do that. So here, so this is what's like, when we're trying to create the position. So hopefully when I went ahead and I'm creating this position, because of the job profile that I selected, this critical job and difficulty to fill gets automatically populated because it's pulling from this job profile. And this, I was giving again, like, kind of real time scenario as to like, why you have this information to fill here. But if you're implementing the recruiting module and it's been implemented in this specific tenant or that the customer is using it, what this helps with is, I don't know if you have seen like spotlight jobs, the ones that, kind of show up on LinkedIn as the top when you're trying to like search for a specific company and they're being promoted, or on, in Workday recruiting. Also, when you're just going to like the recruiting site for that's delivered by Workday, when you have these things kind of filled out, you can say that you want, if it's a difficulty to fill job, let's say, you want those specific jobs to be highlighted and to show up higher on the list of jobs, or to be circulated kind of in their banner. And the same thing with critical jobs. So that's really, it's again, reporting purposes, but it also drives that other piece. If you have the recruiting module set up, you can put the configurations to be like difficulty to fill. If it's a hard one, go ahead and show it at the top, probably near the banner and stuff, and kind of I'm hoping I don't run into any issues, but I'm going to try one more time because I want to be able to make progress on getting to other topics. And I just feel with between the security stuff and I am not getting to that place. I don't want to do that. What I wanted to do is actually hire. So we know that this is already assigned to compensation. No, I need to do that. Propose compensation. And I am just going to do today's date. So I'm going to tie the position to this compensation package. And let's see. Again, non-manager. Something. This I want to do at the time that I'm hiring. Great. Fine. Great. They're selecting the right package. Awesome. Click approve. Have other folks gotten a chance to, I know I ask this every time, but like how far have you guys gotten in the labs? Mhm. Like with access to the tenant and working through the labs and just playing around in the tenant. And I have a feeling in the middle of this week, they're probably going to refresh this tenant, which in one way is good because probably is because of everybody playing around with the configurations has probably messed up things. But at the same time, all this work that I'm doing is kind of getting deleted each time, which makes it difficult to prepare for the class. Because usually, you're just building upon things and it makes it just easier to navigate around and um, play around with things and they're not having to go down rabbit holes. Um, yeah, that makes sense. And it is very true that a lot of the you know, for a while when I was talking to some of the consultants, the ones that had the hardest time initially were people that knew PeopleSoft. I didn't know PeopleSoft. I just got into Workday. For me, it was a little bit easier um, to just
Right,
navigate my way around, and I wasn't trying to think of, how does this tie to PeopleSoft, right?
right, right,
And I hadn't, a lot of the times, any of the projects that I was on, there were people that knew PeopleSoft, so I never had to really kind of worry about that. And now the customers that I work with have been on Workday for quite some time, so there's no mention of PeopleSoft, but there is a huge, huge lot of people that didn't go with Workday just because of, you know, before the breadth wasn't there, or like the fact that you have certain processes in place and you really like the fact that everything is configured to you. It's like so customized, right?
right.
And then with Workday, what you're seeing is it's not really customized. I mean, you can use configuration, but it's not as specific to you, and you can't go behind the scenes and change things, right? Like and override things as easily. So and then what I would say is like once you like get that one project under your belt, it's very easy to move from project
Right,
to project. And then, even what I've seen a lot is people getting hired at Workday. I don't know if you'd ever want to go into product or actually work for Workday itself. Once you have a little bit of experience, it's very easy to move into Workday, kind of help either on the services side or on the product side. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but with everything, right? Like if you went ahead and applied again now with this remote environment, I know, talking to some friends that even at Workday, like this whole traveling thing because of COVID now is not
right,
taking place. So, something to explore if you're still interested. You never know. And
right.
I know, like, and this is so much of a tangent from what we're actually talking about in terms of like in the tenant, but so many, like when I look at, LinkedIn and just look at the jobs and stuff, all these jobs that before I used to be like, I'd love to work for this such and such company, but you know, either they're not in the vicinity that I'm in because I have several constraints as well that I can't travel or whatever. I know in this class we don't get into the detail, and I know the frustration that everybody. I'm kind of talking to everyone because you don't have tenant access. But even if you sometimes just show a little bit of um, I think the word I'm looking for is acumen, or like just understanding of Workday, not knowing like even the nitty gritty. This stuff I would say, and this is coming from someone that has been on several different projects. Once you get sandbox access and community access, easy. Then you just, play around, you'll figure it out and stuff of any issue, but, give it a shot. I would say that to everyone on this call, just give it a shot and see if there's any sort of workday requirements and just go through the process. I feel like the market is hot. There's a lot of jobs out there. Don't let, the like where it's even located now, people are talking to employers and just all of them like, hey, I live in this certain area or these are the hours that I can work. I feel like this is the first time in a long time that candidates can ask for a lot, which is really good.
Right.
The flexibility. So,
Yeah.
okay, I know huge tangent, but I just wanted to see in terms of Ramesh, can I ask you? So you have Steve Smith. If we look at his compensation, he shouldn't have anything because this is before this whole compensation package was tied to this specific org and also the position. And at the time that we actually hired, we didn't do it. There's a way to propose this person's compensation, but nobody's actually going to do that, right? Usually it should be, so you just go ahead, request compensation change, and hopefully I'm just going to do it for today. And then you do the same thing here, right? Like, so just several ways. That's all I'm trying to show. Let's see. What's this? I don't know what I clicked on that. Okay. So just doing the same thing here. Creating a position, right? It's when it's going to be available in prompts and reports and stuff like that, but it's not really driving any sort of process specifically. And you don't need a snapshot of it, right? Like it's not dictating a specific rule or something like that in the tenant. So that's how I think of it. And if I haven't said this before, like just something small, minor to whenever you guys get access to a tenant, if you've noticed, whatever I've added to the tenant, I've kind of put my name at the end of it. It just makes it so much easier, especially like when you're working with so many folks in the tenant kind of configuring their own things, just to keep things separately, like so that way you don't run into too many issues. I know I'm running into a lot of issues in this tenant, but generally it kind of just keeps things clean. And lets you know which ones you actually want to select. So now you see, right, like all this other stuff appeared, whereas before it was just total rewards and employee stock portfolio, and you get the compensation. So this is after the hire. All right, so now I am going to switch gears. All right. We talked about this stuff. I'm just gonna see if there's anything else. All right, I think, and I may or may not have mentioned it, but generally what I've seen is either when a position is getting created, so even though there's a number of ways of doing this, right? Like the compensation package tied to, again, the job profile, or to the position, or just doing it at the time of hire or after hire, right? Most of the time, the way it's done, probably 85% of the time, is at the time the position is being created, you're just tying it to a compensation package, and then when you're actually hiring the employee, then you adjust, right? Based on experience, based on, like right now, what's going on based on the market, you just go ahead and try to add folks to the kind of top tier or of the salary band and try to throw more kind of things at them. So like around allowance plans and all that stuff. So that's all configurable. And then at the time of hire is where you can kind of trump everything else. Okay, so I know, I had like all these, and you're probably hearing the paper behind, is like I had all these activities kind of set up for talking through the security stuff again. But unfortunately, because I can't proxy in, I'm going to see how far I can get with the current stuff. But want to review, and I feel like where I probably didn't clear things up as much as I should have. I'm going to see if I could clear them up with this. I didn't, trying to configure the tenant, trying to review certain pieces of information. I didn't get to create the slides that I would have liked to, but if we still feel that things are a bit confusing, maybe I could spend some time during the week. But, what I'm trying to answer is that question, right, that came up yesterday. And I think, Sriram, you brought it up today too, right? Like just trying to understand the hierarchy. And the way I'm going to answer it just now is that the hierarchy is really configurable. And it's not that one specific person or one specific role, or a security group trumps everything else. It's really how it's configured. So it's not Workday delivered that way, that any specific person, security group, or role-based security group is going to trump, just like have all access. It's really about how it's configured, and that configuration will determine the hierarchy. So it's kind of hard to just say like, this is the hierarchy and this kind of, let me go through this, try to walk through it in the tenant too, and then we could see where we kind of need some more clarification. And I really feel, and I was, talking it out with a colleague of mine as well. Like, I feel, so for me, the way I learn, yeah, there's concepts, but it's really about being in a tenant and playing around in the tenant. And security is just one of those things that I think, and the other colleague was kind of agreeing with me. It's like, it takes a good year. And that doesn't help right now. I know in training, it's kind of like, then what am I attending this course for? But it's just, again, I feel like understanding the navigation and then getting to play around in a tenant, even if it's just for a little bit in this specific tenant, but even once you get to the customer site, it's going to make more and more sense. And there is this advanced, and I don't know if ZaranTech gives it, but advanced security course. I haven't had yet to take it because generally where I kind of live is in this user-based, role-based, but there are these other security types, right? Location-based, segment, aggregate. I haven't had to really use any of these. I've had to just stick around 80% to probably 90% in this user-based and role-based. There is job-based, and we could get into that. I haven't used it as of yet, but user-based and role-based, and folks were agreeing with me that it's really like 80 to 90% of the time you're going to be in this. The advanced, for folks that have taken it, they're like, they very rarely use it and it's just too complicated, this other stuff. But not to say that if you get to that point where you want to use it, you can definitely
yeah, it's always there, because there's always a lot of functionality, but it's not necessary that all clients use it. It mostly is the most common practices that follow.
Yeah. So security group, basically, just like I may have emphasized this, like once you go ahead, you hire somebody, right? Like depending on the BP, either a Workday account will get created, basically a system user account gets created, or you could manually do it just like the way I did with the Workday account. And then that user really doesn't have access to anything per se, except for it's kind of like default stuff that Workday has given, employee as self. So any self-service task, and we'll get into that in a little bit if I haven't gone through that already. But it's really these users having membership in either a user-based security group or role-based security group that gives them access to perform certain tasks, see certain information in the tenant, or like be able to do steps in a business process. So I will probably go back to a couple of reports that we've kind of seen, but basically there's all these, and I think Ramesh, you were asking about location-based security groups. So there is that one, but I'm not too familiar with it. Again, I feel like 80 to 90% you're kind of living in here. So I'll just go ahead and focus on this stuff. But this other, all of these, all is covered in an advanced course. I'm just not sure if ZaranTech gives it at the moment, but I can find that part out. All right. So then the other piece is, if people haven't messed around with it, there's certain security groups that Workday just knows, based on their knowledge or like customer feedback, that these are how it should be configured. Not to say you can't override it, right? Like it's just to kind of give a starting place for these things. Like what are the most heavily kind of performed sort of tasks? What are the information that people usually need access to that are HR partners? And then you could assign a user to that role, right? And saying that you are the HR partner for this, and then automatically they'll have access to those specific domains or business processes for that org. And it's not going to be like, or if I wanted to go down several subordinates and just say that Will Banner, who's a manager, he's now the HR partner for 2 orgs. He'll only have access to whatever HR partner has access to, but only for those 2 orgs and the people that are in it, not in superior orgs. So role-based is org-based, right? And assigned to specific positions. Whereas user-based is basically you're looking, let's say security administrator, for instance. You don't, maybe in your company, you don't want them, and it's more like the administrator stuff than the partner, right? Like you have a compensation partner, HR partner, what are other ones? I'm sure there's several other ones that I can't think of right now. Whereas user-based, like those are tenant-wide. You don't care. It's irrelevant of the org. You just want a specific person to have very specific access or to domains and tasks, and you don't care which org it's for. It's kind of like, spanning the tenant in the overall tenant. So that's the biggest difference. Sure. So when I think about it, it's the way I've seen it done, role-based, several different people can have the same role. HR partner, you can have several different people that are going to be HR partner, and they're all kind of, you're not looking to get most of the time, because there's going to be several different people in that role. You don't, somebody might need emergency contact information or being able to update it, and other people don't. Instead of creating 2 different role-based security groups for kind of the same thing, but just at that granular level, there's just like a minute difference, then that's where I would go to this user-based security group that like maybe there's only 1 or 2 people that really need access to that kind of information. Okay, let me just make sure I understand the example. Let's say these 10 people that you put in this role-based, their HR partner, they can view contact information. But there's 2 people in that group that you actually want to have edit access, right?
Right.
Okay, I would put the 10 people still are in that HR partner group, the role-based one. And then in the, I would create a user-based security group and just say that these are HR administrators. They not only have view access, but they also have modify access to HR partner, user-based security group, and you have more. It's not that it's going to just look at one security group and be like, oh, you have only view. But if it sees that you have view and modify, it's going to really go with that one. So because there's nothing that's, it's not that one supersedes the other, but because user-based is tenant-wide, you're not restricted by the specific org company. You have this HR role, partner role, right? And what this is saying, I don't know, I feel like I walked through this, but basically there's 336 domain security policy permissions that this person has, right? And it's all these different functional areas that they have access to. So let's go to contact. Okay, so over here, it's saying that they have view and modify all of this stuff, right? But let's say I go to, let's do emergency contact. And I want to remove HR partner from here. I say view only, right? Now what I'm saying is HR partner for that specific org, right, in ZaranTech, anybody that's part of this HR partner group only will have view access. But this user-based, right, HR admin, let's make sure it's user-based. Yep, it's user-based, will have view and modify. So you could have this is right, these three dots right here, user-based, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is role-based, security-based.
Got it.
And you could also, another easy way of doing it, if let's say you were just looking for HR partner, and the search results, the reason that there's all of these is if you're looking for a specific area. So over here, you'll see that these are role-based as well, and then HR admin. So, I mean, several ways of seeing the same information. Over here, I highly doubt that you'll be using it in the search box as much, but just want to show it as well and kind of highlight these categories. So HR admin, this one, the one that we're looking at, user-based. So several ways of seeing the same information. So kind of like Sriram, the kind of, as long as the HR partner that I'm looking at, let's say I'm talking about Will Banner, he has the HR partner role for ZaranTech, the whole org, right? But he's not part of the HR admin group. So when they kind of process the his security access, it'll be that, oh, you can view it, but you can't go ahead and edit any person's emergency contact, right? And if we're talking like the way you're saying, Ramesh, if let's say there was another one, I think FBI HR partner. Let's see what they have here. I don't know who created this, but somebody created this, right? This should be a role-based, right? This is a role-based. They have security permissions. And let's say for this one, I'm saying that, let's stick to this for a second. Okay, over here I say FBI HR partner, and they want to have view and modify. Does that make sense? Like you could do it a number of ways, right? These are both role-based right here, FBI HR partner, but the biggest difference between user-based versus role-based is this is org specific. So if you look here, let's go back to this org stuff. You're basically saying applies to current organization and any unassigned subordinates, right? Basically, you're just saying that it's restricted to the specific org that I've assigned this role to. So in my specific scenario, this is ZaranTech. If, let's say, they wanted to go, another supervisory org was out there, let's say Global Modern Services, let's just say that's the one. This is not, since Logan McNeil, let's just say or Will Banner, let's stick to Will Banner. He's an HR partner for all of ZaranTech, but he has nothing to do with Global Modern Services. He's not an HR partner for that org, right? And the way you see that is through that assignable roles, right? Over here, if I go to Global Modern Services, you won't see Will Banner on there, right? So let's say I updated this to be Will Banner. Now he's HR partner for this org, the ZaranTech org, and any subordinates. And that's how the security is going to be determined, is it says it applies to current organization and any unassigned subordinates. And as you saw, right? Like with the role stuff, if you assign it at the most superior level, it gets inherited to all the subordinates, or even if you assign somewhere in the middle, it'll inherit further down if you don't um, assign specific roles at those subordinates. Does that help about how security is going to be determined? So that would be a user-based, right? Because if they need access to different, like let's say Global Modern Services and ZaranTech, so tenant-wide, then you would use a user-based security group and say that this person needs access to, let's say, view and modify contact information. Then you would just make sure, is it here, that HR administrator, that person has this setup and this setup, right? Or you could do it by role again, right? Like if it's not tenant wide, but there's only 2 different orgs that they need to be assigned to, then you just go ahead and use this, like in those 2 different orgs, you just make sure that the assignable role is, let's say, HR partner, and then whoever that person is that needs that access to those 2 different orgs. Does that make sense? So just this, like tenant wide, meaning like the whole, whatever orgs are configured in the tenant. So just irrespective of that, and this is org based. And if it's just 1 or 2 orgs that they need access to, a couple of orgs, you could do the role based, user based is tenant wide and assigned to a specific person. Role based assigned to the position. And this one, the other thing is like, if you assign, let's say I assign Will Banner, a user-based security group, once he's terminated, that goes away, right? Like you can't reuse it. That's why most of the time, like HR partner is assigned to a specific position. And the reason being is that, once that person leaves, then or terminated, the next person that shows up in that position probably has the same responsibilities and the same thing that they need to do. So that's why role-based is assigned to a position. So that's when you talk to, at least that's what I've done in the past, just talk to the HR admins. I remember just trying once, I didn't have access to anything, and then I had to talk to the HR folks to like email them and say that I need this information. Okay. All right. So going back to one more thing. So I think everybody understands, it seems like everybody understands at least like that if you need access to anything, you go through the functional areas, domains, and we'll get into, let's do contact information. So you have the functional area, just a grouping of everything that's related to contact information, and it's across over here, the Workday solution. Like, of course, we're highlighting it in this HCM one, but it spans across several different areas in Workday, right? Like financials, there's expenses, payroll, and all that, the other modules. And you have that this area contains everything that has to do with setup, maintain, report on names, contact information, such as address, phone numbers. It's enabled for the tenant, and only when you're implementing a new area or it's a new functional area, let's just say, or something new that was delivered, usually around domains by Workday. Sometimes it's not automatically enabled, so make sure that you enable it. And this is a first good place to check, but let's go ahead into contact information. And actually, before we get into there, and like we've been talking about, right? Like it's the domains, these groupings of the tasks and reports, and your access through the permissions to be able to view or modify whatever makes up these domains will give you access to the information. And then business processes we'll hopefully get into next week. But let me go into, and I lost it, contact information. And I'm going to look at the domain. So you have 2 security policies we're going to look at, because just like there's business processes, a workflow that this area kind of follows, And then the reports and tasks are over here and the report fields and the domains. So let me go into view domain security policies. And the one that I was looking at, right, is the emergency contact. This is the parent level. So whatever you have set up, like view modify, will just get inherited later to these children over here, the child level policies. But you could always go ahead and configure this further, right? So emergency contact, home address. Over here, it's saying that the, and this is the securable item. This is to be able to see this specific report field. And then I think it's in, this is work address, it's in here, possibly. These are all the actions that I can take. A lot of them are going to be around report, and there's, since you probably have seen, there's so many different places where you can view this information. This is just all the different areas, right, where you can view it. There should be, I thought there was. Yeah, okay. So going back to emergency contact, this one. So HR admin, this is that user-based one. And this is basically saying that they have view access, and then they could also modify for any employee, right? As long as it's not restricted by anything else. HR partner has the same thing. It's role-based, but it's specifically for their current organization. If they're assigned that position or that person is assigned as a the HR partner role for that organization, they can go ahead and view and modify for any people, like employees that are part of that organization or the subordinates. One thing I'm not seeing here, because I think, and then these two, employee as self or contingent worker as self. So this is like for any of those self-service tasks where you're going to go ahead and edit or add emergency contact. So automatically these get as soon as you create a Workday account, people will automatically get added to these security proofs, so they can update their own information. And the exercise that I was going to do once I figure out this proxy access was to go ahead and with the emergency contact, similar to what we were just talking through, right? Like if I'm not an HR partner for a specific org, I won't have edit access to the emergency contact information for any employee. But as soon as I have this HR partner role in, let's say, one of the orgs that's part of the ZaranTech company, I should be able to modify this information if I have modify access. Now, if let's say I only have view access, I didn't have modify, I'll be able to see the information, but won't be able to click edit on it. But as soon as I add modify, I'll make sure to go ahead and I'll be able to see that edit button. And then anybody that's part of HR admin, even though they're not assigned part of that HR partner role for that org, but let's say, just a random person part of under Logan McNeil, Ben something, he has HR admin access and he has view and modify. He'll be able to, irrelevant of the org, be able to go to anybody and be able to update their information. So hope that helps and clears up several things. Again, like I think it helps a lot to go through those activities. I was hoping to go through it myself right now to kind of show you that information. So over here how we can see like different cards. These are called these are called profile cards, and you can go ahead and configure them, right? Like not everybody wants to see all the information. Some places job details is on this side. There's different cards, and depending on, what module you have access to, right? Like this area is kind of called a profile view. You may like, just like how you saw with pre-hires, they kind of have a different thing. Employees have, this is the profile, and in general for the whole tenant. So let me go ahead and show you. So there's several. If we type in profile, and again, it depends if she has access. Okay. So what I'm looking for, there's several of them, but let's start with this profile card. So this profile header card is, and I should have stayed local. Okay, this is a profile card over here, this one, the header profile card that's showing up. And let's see how they have it. So like I was saying, dependent on what type of person you are in the tenant. So you could be a worker, but then you could also be, you could have been a candidate before, right? Like through the recruiting stuff. Or student has several. There's external student, before student has been implemented, like you've turned on the student stuff in the tenant. This, once you have it turned on, I think these are all related to the student information. I think even this one, academic affiliate, I feel like this one and this one is, and this one is tied to recruiting, but the one that we're looking at currently is this worker profile. When you click OK, and so it says location, manager, works from home, and the workspace. So over here, that's what's showing up, the manager, the location, and then the workspace information. Let's see if I could add anything else. Let's see what's left over. Maybe I want to put employee ID right there. I think profile cards is not for a specific. I will find out, but I believe that it's not like if I'm just logged in as Logan McNeil and I only want to change it for myself, I don't believe that you can do that. Where you can kind of change your configurations is really on this landing page for myself. But in terms of this profile, I believe it's tenant wide. Did I end up saving those changes? Oh, I just did. Yes, I did. Employee ID. So now when I look at Logan McNeil, you see how that changed, right? It changed whatever's showing up, and it should be tenant wide. There is something that's for user, but I believe it's only for this landing page of how I want this information to just show up for me. There's certain things that are configurable, like the applications that show up here. And if I want this inbox, that's where it's going to be configurable. So the next piece that I want to do, so I showed you the header card. So just that one top level thing, if I even want to show it. Then the next one that I wanted to show is configure profile group. So this one, and I'll show you what this goes ahead. Groups by profile. So I will, which one don't I have configured right now? Let's see. I'm just going to do job for right now. So job details, personal details, okay. So this one is how you want if you want this information to show up on this side, I believe, and I will find out in a second. So let me take out job details. Click OK. All right. And we saw job details here. Took out, this had 9 before. 9, took 9. Contract history, contract details. It is going to start removing things from these tabs. So I think this is all I have left. So initially, all this stuff, right? All these things, because I went to the job for worker profile, it's looking at this tab and it's going to start removing things from here. You see how I have all this data. This is what was previously there. Now I've just removed it down to this. Click OK. And then refresh. And now I'm left with these 4, right? So that's the profile group one. And then this back to this one. Configure profile. Worker profile. Come back to this. So this is saying, what do you want to display on this side? On this side. So we have 9 things here selected. I could change the order. So job, overview, contract, all this stuff. So let's move pay all the way up, or benefits. Let's just stick to this one. Benefits. Before job was, summary is just default. The job was here and benefits was down here. I'm just going to click OK. And refresh my screen. And now you see benefits is here. So there's that profile card, which is for this. There's the configure profile, which you select the specific one that you want. So we did job, and then in there you can add or remove or change the ordering around. And then configure profile is which tab you specifically want to show here, for the area that you want to show here. So I just wanted to show that you can change it around, and it's all like, if in one tenant you're working in one tenant and you're like, why don't I see this information? It's because of the configurations around these profile and profile groups and profile card. Okay, I know, complete tangent, but just wanted to show that. Any questions? Are we good to go for today?